Chosen one, paradox is the mother tongue of honest desire. To her, you are the quiet she didn't know how to ask for, and the interruption she didn't know she needed. Calm because your center holds, chaos because her old defenses do not. The immediate rearrangement inside her is not collapse, it is renovation. Walls built by long caution start to look like temporary scaffolds around a house that intends to breathe. This is not the chaos of wildfire. It is the productive disorder of a room mid-restoration, furniture pulled from the corners, windows unlatched, drop cloths down to protect what must be kept. Your presence is the contractor and the lullaby both, work happening at a steady tempo while a song refuses to let panic set the pace. Your calm is not a mood, it is a method. You breathe before you speak, so words arrive trimmed of the heat that harms. You choose sentences the next day can carry without limping. You let your anger do its rightful job, and then go home on time. It cauterizes the wound without burning the healthy tissue that surrounds it. You do not conscript urgency to impersonate passion. You keep your yes attached to a calendar and your no attached to a soft mouth. Calm like this is not decorative, it is load-bearing. She leans without meaning to and finds the structure's weight exceeds her own. Her pulse slows. Her law firm of survival strategies files for a sabbatical, and yet inside that steadiness you move her, not by spectacle, but by alignment. A man fully aligned, eyes, voice, pace, promise, produces a pressure system that dislodges the dust. She feels it first as a flutter where breath starts to climb, then as a quiet that steals her rehearsed quips, then as a laughter that discovers its true register. The chaos she encounters is not harm, it is unlearning. She misplaces her old maps because the landscape has changed. Exits are still visible, but they are not the only way to stay safe. Windows now open and let in a scent that makes sense of the season. It is not spring's shout, it is the more serious warmth of late afternoon that tells a garden the investment was not foolish. You stand there and do nothing theatrical. The day believes you. The body reads your choreography and adopts it. You do not crowd thresholds, you hold them. You do not reach like a net, you reach like a hand that knows the grammar of maybe and the full vocabulary of not now. You do not sit forward to garnish dominance. You sit as if listening were a craft and ear a tool you respect. She answers with stillness. Stillness is not absence of motion, it is the arrival of choice. Where there is choice, there can be appetite without panic. Appetite without panic is the most subversive kind of longing. It dismantles scarcity's sales pitch, the one that has been shouting for years that only emergencies are real. Your calm throws that salesman out. Your chaos puts new paint on the walls. Because you are anchored, your intensity is safe. Heat without ballast becomes demand. Heat with ballast becomes invitation. When you want her, she hears the offer rather than the order. When you step closer, she feels the question rather than the claim. When you laugh low and true, she finds that sound is not a hook but a coat, the kind that fits and keeps weather honest without hiding a knife in the lining. The chaos you cause is the good kind, the demolition of the old script in which desire and danger were married by necessity. You officiate their divorce. In that courtroom, breath testifies on your behalf. Your calm is contagious, and not because you impose it. You keep rituals that export steadiness into the air. Water before words, your mouth remembers mercy. Sleep before ambition, your pace remembers people. Counsel before conclusion, your certainty remembers humility. Sabbath before spectacle, your worth remembers it was never for sale. These are not slogans, they are the quiet mechanics of a life that refuses to hire adrenaline as an identity. She senses the machinery without seeing it, the way a child senses the engine in the hum of a trusted car. Trust makes the trip restful. Restful trips make destinations less desperate. Fewer arrivals feel like rescues, more feel like choices. In that shift, her heart makes room for a future unafraid of plain days. Plain days are where joy hides when it wants to last. There will be moments when your steadiness exposes the fragility of what she learned to rely on. The first reflex is defensive. Essays get drafted silently on why chaos was necessary. You do not argue with the essay. You hold temperature until the ink dries into something legible. Then, if she offers it, you read with the seriousness that has saved you from the arrogance of quick fixes. The answer you give is not a speech. It is a practice continued in her presence. No weaponized silence, no clever scarcity, no transaction masquerading as romance. Slowly, her body renegotiates. It releases the clauses that made love expensive and installs policies that let it buy groceries and sit on the couch and pay the electric bill with gratitude left over for wildflowers. Policies this humane make breath a citizen instead of a fugitive. Chaos will also arrive from outside the two of you. Weather, family, vocation, the ordinary unfairness that spares no one. Your calm must not become passivity. It must become stewardship. You do not offer neutrality when harm needs naming. You speak with a surgeon's care, cutting what must be cut and sparing what must be spared. You protect without making war your hobby. You take your turn at the hard task without announcing your heroism. You stay correctable. Correctable men can be trusted with power because their strength does not need to be right to be real. Correctable men are the quiet revolution. Chosen ones are staging in a century that keeps confusing volume with virtue. Do not be surprised when the paradox becomes a plan. She will begin to count on your calm and welcome your chaos. Calm will be the policy that governs the home you are building in every room you enter. Chaos will be the permission slip for laughter in the kitchen at 10 p.m., for dancing in a hallway that was not designed for concerts, for the kiss that arrives not as a performance but as a completion of a sentence. Neither of you rushed. This plan requires maintenance. Maintenance is unglamorous. It is also holy. Keep oil on the hinges. Keep the broom near the door. Keep the apology short and attached to altered conditions. Keep the exit soft. Keep the boundaries visible so closeness never needs to guess. And when she tells you in her way that her breath left and came back remodeled, resist dramatizing your role. You are not the storm and not the shelter. You are the man who learned to host both. Host them. When she is undone, set a chair at the table and let silence pour the water. When she is serene, let your joy take up the task of celebration without consuming the feast. Your task is not to be her reason for breathing. It is to be the kind of weather where breath does not have to fight for its life. Hold that line. Hold it when the room is loud and when it is lonely, when you are applauded and when you are ignored. Hold it when you are tempted to become wind and when you are tempted to become stone. The middle holds. The middle is where homes are. Calm and chaos, both in their rightful jurisdiction, are sacraments when stewarded. They bless by making the world more livable today and more believable tomorrow. You are their steward, chosen one, not because you took a vow in public, but because you keep private vows that the public benefits from without ever knowing their names. Keep them. Keep being the interruption that makes old maps unusable and the stillness that makes new ones readable. Keep causing the kind of breathlessness that returns as better breathing. Keep being the paradox that teaches simple truths. Warmth is safest at a steady flame, love is strongest at a human pace, and the chaos worth trusting is the one that only knocks down what was never meant to stand. Chosen one, the body has a vote before the mind opens its mouth. It is an old parliament with quick hands and no patience for speeches. Long before she can decide how to appear, her pupils have widened by a margin that would embarrass her if she could see it. The micro-muscles at the sides of her lips have already stepped out of formation. The voice she trained for polite rooms slides a half note lower and finds a timbre that was not scheduled. A single breath misses its cue and returns with new timing. This is not helplessness. It is honesty ahead of agenda. The current of recognition moves too fast for choreography, and the choreography that usually keeps her safe cannot keep up. You did not cause it by pressure or performance. The reaction is her nervous system saluting a climate it trusts. What is it saluting exactly? Not a costume, not a trick, not a mask that reads the room for angles. It is your refusal to recruit her attention into your insecurity. 1,000 small devotions in you arrive before you do. Water that softened your words, rest that kept your steadiness from becoming a pose, counsel that taught your certainty to share the floor, boundaries you carry like door frames instead of like fences with spikes. The devotions stack into density. Density becomes gravity. Gravity becomes relief. Relief shows up as involuntary truth. Shoulders unlearn the habit of apologizing for existing. Laughter climbs out of the diaphragm instead of the throat. Eyes look instead of scanning for exits. She cannot fake these. The honest hour reaches into the machinery and changes the settings while the manager is still on her way. There is a science to this poetry. In rooms that require performance to avoid harm, the body budgets energy toward defense. It tightens the jaw to keep the tongue from volunteering anything expensive. It lifts the chest and shortens the breath to attain a simulation of brightness. It sharpens the gaze to detect leverage. Then you arrive with attention that behaves like light rather than like a searchlight. Revealing, not interrogating, warming, not consuming. And the budget is revised. Defense is defunded without a vote, and curiosity receives an unexpected grant. She did not choose to blush or breathe differently. Her ledger did. Good accounting is difficult to fake, and this is good accounting. The numbers finally add. Because you are unaware, the reaction stays clean. You do not stare like a collector cataloging rarity. You do not grow taller because someone else grew softer. You do not translate the moment into leverage. You keep the conversation at a human temperature and let her physiology finish writing the sentence it began without asking permission. The dignity of unobserved truth is the safest feeling most people know. In that privacy, an older version of her, one that remembers play without witnesses and wonder without a plan, peeks around the corner to see whether it is safe to enter. Your posture says it is. That posture is not a stance, it is the residue of practice. Sometimes the reaction looks like a stumble. A hand pauses over a glass that doesn't yet need lifting. A name takes the scenic route through memory even though she knew it by heart. A sentence reaches for a word and finds a better one 3 beats later. She laughs at herself quietly, like a person who feels foolish and relieved in the same breath. You are tempted to rescue, to fill, to perform a chivalry that would return her composure. Resist the reflex to manage what truth is doing without you. Your job is not to return the mask. Your job is to keep the room breathable while the mask realizes it can become a face again. There is a deeper reason she cannot fake this hour. The cost of confusion is too high, and you are not charging it. In past rooms, ambiguity was weaponized to generate drama that could be resold as romance. Here, clarity is on tap. You say what you mean at a pace that prevents imagination from writing horror. Your interest can be heard without becoming a subpoena. Your absence behaves the same as your presence. Clean edges, no fog. The nervous system keeps score of such things without consulting the mind. It runs a background audit, and when the audit returns with fewer red flags than usual, breath changes. That change is involuntary, because audits do not ask for opinions, they tally. If you notice her reaction, and you will eventually, do not promote yourself to interpreter-in-chief. Notice as a witness, not as a prosecutor. Witnesses tell the truth about what they saw, and then they sit down. The truth here is simple. Something became easier in your radius, and her body told you the news. Honor the message by keeping ease expensive where harm is concerned, and cheap where dignity is concerned. Keep the policies that created the climate. Do not switch languages now that you are understood. It is tempting to imagine that the beauty of this involuntariness lies in its spectacle, the flushed cheek, the paused breath, the eyes that walk back across the room to make certain you are still there. That beauty is a surface. The deeper beauty is that she is not performing against herself to survive being near you. She is not acting casual to offset perceived danger, nor escalating brightness to earn attention that should arrive freely, nor drafting sarcasm as a bodyguard. The body gives up simulations when a place tells the truth. You didn't steal her breath. The performance that was stealing it left. The chosen ones have always understood that real magnetism is not irresistible because it overwhelms. It is irresistible because it relieves. Relief cannot be faked. The nervous system is the sworn enemy of counterfeit. It rates rooms by whether they return energy or demand it. Your room returns. The evidence lives in the details you are busy not noticing. Her hand stops searching for a prop to hold. The edges around her eyes forget their assignment. She does not narrate her value while speaking. These are the unglamorous rescues that make a day livable. They have no soundtrack. They are how a life begins to trust itself again. If you want preparation, keep it humble. Keep sleep ahead of spectacle so your calm has a renewable source. Keep water ahead of opinion so your tongue remembers mercy. Keep counsel ahead of conclusion, so your certainty remembers room for correction. Keep ending ahead of applause, so tenderness can walk itself home. Practices like these do not trend, and that is their power. They make your presence legible to bodies that would rather read truth than captions. They produce reactions that marketing cannot replicate, and you should not attempt to monetize. Let them remain what they are: involuntary votes for a climate that does not cost as much as the world. You will be thanked for this in ways that do not say thank you. A text that is shorter and kinder. A plan that is simpler and kept. A silence that does not starve. These are older currencies than compliments, and they spend better over time. Accept them as the body's way of acknowledging that it did not have to fake anything to live near you. Then return to your ordinary work, tying the shoe, cleaning the glass ring you did not make, closing the door softly. The parliament under her ribs will continue to vote. You do not need to count ballots. Keep the chamber calm. Chosen one, attraction sits at a narrow doorway between exposure and erasure. On one side is the fear that you will see too much. Her parted breath, the tremor in her laughter, the chapel light that just flashed across her face, and treat it like a trophy. On the other side is the fear that you will miss it entirely, pass by as if nothing holy happened, and leave her feeling foolish for having felt. She is walking this threshold without a map. The air is thin here because dignity is doing high work. It is trying to let truth be seen without becoming a spectacle, and trying to let privacy be kept without becoming a prison. Your role is not to widen the door with speeches. It is to make the threshold trustworthy. Trustworthy thresholds are built with modest attention. If you notice, you do it the way a gardener notices a bud, by stepping back half a pace so light can do the rest. You do not label her reaction or put it up for discussion like an agenda item. You do not convert the moment into proof that you can have what you want. You let the fact of it alter you first. Soften your voice, calibrate your distance, steady your hands. And only then, if language would reduce rather than enlarge her risk, you use a small sentence that keeps her sovereignty intact. It is good to be here. We can keep this slow. I'm listening. Sentences like these are doors you hold open without standing in the frame. If you don't notice, your ignorance must be merciful rather than careless. Merciful ignorance keeps the same climate without requiring feedback to stay decent. It doesn't need confirmation to keep the pace humane. It doesn't drop kindness because applause failed to appear on cue. The relief of this is immense. She learns that your good is not dependent on her visible response. She can feel what she feels without being drafted into managing your ego around it. Fear relaxes a fraction. The fraction matters. Fractions build into policies. Policies build into homes. The paradox, noticed or not noticed, springs from a deeper question. Will my tenderness cost me? Chosen ones answer that question with architecture, not with argument. The architecture is in your boundaries that are visible enough to be trusted and soft enough to be approached. It is in your attention that can focus without fastening. It is in your humor that refuses collateral damage. It is in your no, which closes a door gently enough that the next good thing can use it. When a structure like this holds, the fear of being exposed and the fear of being erased have less work. They do not vanish. They retire from emergency duty and take on part-time hours. There are missteps available to you on both sides, and you will take some. Notice without reverence becomes voyeurism dressed as sensitivity. Not noticing becomes neglect dressed as mystery. The repair, when you stray, is made of proportion. You name precisely what you did, no theater, no self-flagellation, and you change the condition that made it likely. If you stared when you should have softened, you practice looking like a lamp instead of a searchlight. If you missed when presence asked for notice, you practice checking the room for what is delicate before you check it for what is interesting. Repairs like these reassure her that neither exposure nor erasure is policy. They are weather events that your house is built to withstand and learn from. She fears you will notice because you might mistake the reaction for consent. You don't. You read the reaction as weather, not as a contract, and you let consent have its own clear voice later, at its own speed. In that patience, the reaction, which began as a surge, settles into a current you can both navigate. She also fears you won't notice because unacknowledged beauty feels like a song sung to an empty room. You handle this by praising without annexing. You name something specific and present tense that her body can agree with without renting a future it did not approve. I like how your laugh makes the room calmer. I'm grateful for the way you kept that moment kind. Thank you for the pace you brought. Gratitude is safer than hunger at thresholds. It leaves people their faces. Her double fear teaches you a better sight. You learn to see the human scale of things. The fork placed carefully back on a plate to remove clutter from the table. The small exhale before she answers a question honestly. The way she changes posture to give someone else the floor. You bless what is small without turning it into spectacle. Spectacle is loud gratitude that secretly asks to be applauded for noticing. Blessing is quiet gratitude that lets goodness rest without hiring trumpets. Under blessing, fear learns to unclench. When it unclenches, breath returns. There is also the matter of timing. The narrow doorway widens when time is handled with kindness. You do not rush a revelation to satisfy curiosity, nor delay acknowledgement to manufacture mystique. You move with the hour, not your image. If the wisest act is to let the moment pass unremarked so it can grow in peace, you let it pass. If the kindest act is to mirror back a fragment of what you saw so she knows reality is shared, you hold the mirror briefly and put it down before either of you begins to preen. The rhythm you choose becomes law. Law is what fear consults at 2 in the morning when it is deciding whether to continue guarding or to let the city sleep. Be mindful of the market that would sell you script and counterscript. Notice dramatically to assert your power. Refuse to notice to increase your price. Both are expensive for someone else to pay. Choose the cheaper economy, the one of honest presence. In it, your noticing is an act of stewardship. A quick, proportionate light that helps us see. And your not noticing is an act of humility, a decision to let a person keep their mystery without being made into a project. This economy accrues interest in trust. Interest looks like easier laughter on a Tuesday, cleaner disagreements on a Friday, and relief that does not require a hangover on a Sunday afternoon. At some point, the paradox will ask to be named. She will test the air with a sentence that risks embarrassment. You will meet it with a tone that protects the risk, rather than using it to audition your own charm. The meeting does not have to be eloquent, it has to be true. Truth at the right temperature is the only solvent that dissolves the adhesive of those twin fears. Afterward, she may still worry privately about having been seen or missed. That is ordinary. What will be new is the knowledge that the threshold can be crossed without wounds. Carry this into future rooms. Notice as if beauty were a citizen, not a commodity. Don't notice as if dignity were a right, not a reward. Let your steadiness keep the doorway honest, and let your gentleness keep it open. The breath you took without meaning to will return with instructions, as it always does when awe is treated with care. It will teach both of you a slower breathing, one that does not rush to be witnessed, and does not rush to make itself invisible. This is how the chosen ones become keepers of thresholds, by refusing to turn sensitivity into spectacle, by refusing to turn restraint into neglect, by building a door that knows the worth of what passes through. In the end, her fear that you will notice and her fear that you will not notice are the same prayer spoken in 2 dialects. Please keep me real here. Answer it with your policies, not your performance. Keep the room at a temperature the heart can hold. Keep your eyes kind and your hands literate and your sentences sized to tomorrow. Keep the hinge oiled. She will step through at her pace, and when she does, the air will change again, and both of you will breathe like people who have learned that reverence can be ordinary. Chosen one, what moved her was not a display. It was the absence of one. The day had taught her to look for angles, for choreography disguised as charm, for that thin film of self-consciousness that slicks over every gesture when someone is trying to be unforgettable. You arrived without that film. Your hours are welded to a quiet ethic. Do the next honest thing at a rhythm a human being can keep. And because you didn't try to be the moment trusted you with itself. Breath leaves a body most willingly when no one is watching it go. That is why you didn't see it happen. That is why it mattered. There is a physics to unawareness that most of the world has forgotten. Self-curation bends light back toward the self. Attention then travels the room like a spotlight searching for reasons to stay on. Your lack of curation let the light rest where it landed. You said what you meant and let the sentence end without begging for an encore. You smiled and did not position the smile like a billboard. You let silence cool the iron so it could bend without breaking. In that ordinariness, her lungs did an audit and adjusted their budget. The line item for vigilance shrank. The line item for ease grew. The body keeps books more honestly than the mind, and its accounting is fast. Before she had the chance to decide how to feel, breath had already voted. You don't know you did it because you were occupied with small craft, saying a name carefully enough to honor it, squaring a chair so the next person would not trip, ending while tenderness could still stand up on its own and walk to the door. These are unphotogenic devotions. They do not accumulate applause. They accumulate trust. Trust, once stacked high enough, changes the weather in a room. Weather asks nothing dramatic of anyone. It simply makes certain futures plausible. Plausibility is a humble miracle. It is also the road by which desire travels without becoming drama. If you had noticed your effect and tried to ride it, the air would have thickened. She would have felt the tug of performance behind your kindness, the price tag under the plate. Your not knowing preserved the gift as a gift. Gifts, when they are real, come without implied contracts. They make people larger. They do not press them into gratitude shaped like compliance. You gave her that largeness without awakening a single alarm. And breath, always the earliest intelligence, recognized the difference. It left for a beat to make room for recognition to come through with dignity. Then it returned with instructions. Slow down, tell the truth, stay. There is preparation here for you because unawareness is not the same as neglect. To keep the climate in which breath chooses you, you must continue to feed the sources that made you quiet. Keep a little water between your tongue and your opinions so your words arrive softened, not dulled. Keep sleep as a boundary with yourself so your steadiness isn't a pose you can't afford. Keep a practice of asking someone you trust to disagree with you early so the world doesn't have to do it loudly. Keep margins in your calendar so care has somewhere to sit when it shows up unannounced. None of this belongs on a poster. All of it becomes the invisible scaffolding that holds the room up without calling itself the architecture. You will be tempted, as all men are when they finally overhear a compliment, to curate. Curation is the counterfeiter's art. It produces a high-resolution image of something that used to be alive. Resist it. Your draw is not the pose, it's the policies. Policies are boring to discuss and breathtaking to live under. They say your interest will not twist into pressure, your silence will not turn punitive, your apology will not audition for applause, your leaving will not vandalize the hour you shared. She cannot see these policies written anywhere. She can only feel the cost of being human drop while you're near. That drop is the reason her chest forgot its job for a second. Don't raise the price by turning climate into theater. Unawareness also kept you from converting the moment into leverage. Leverage would have dressed the exchange in scarcity. Less clarity, so you'll chase it. Less availability, so you'll value it. Fewer straightforward words, so the puzzle can keep you busy. The century is a carnival of such scarcity tricks, and they do work for a while. But breath does not negotiate with tricks. It withholds itself. The frank mercy of your presence let breath choose differently. It wasn't kidnapped. It volunteered. Volunteers return. Hostages plan escapes. There is a humility at the core of breathlessness that we rarely name. When something in us agrees with a truer order, the body pauses to make space. She did not surrender to you. She surrendered to what you made possible. A tempo that did not demand she be spectacular to be safe. A gaze that could admire without annexing. A conversation that did not punish boundaries or convert nuance into riddles. You were the steward of that possibility. And because stewardship is quiet, you missed your own miracle. Good. This is how chosen ones keep their influence from rotting into identity. They keep sweeping after the music ends. You will learn of your effect secondhand. A friend will mention that she asked about you in a tone that does not fit idle curiosity. A sibling will report that her face changed when your name arrived, like a room that discovered a window. You are not required to perform at hearing these reports. Receive them as weather updates. Weather forecasts do not interest the sky. The sky keeps its pressure systems in order and lets the reports take care of themselves. Keep your systems. Keep the way your no closes a door gently enough for the next good thing to use it. Keep the way your yes arrives carrying the attention it needs to survive. Keep the way your laughter refuses to buy its ticket with cruelty. The forecast will remain fine. If there is a sentence to carry from this chapter, let it be plain. You became the kind of man a breath could trust by minding what breath needs. Space, warmth, right pacing, no smoke. When breath trusts, it risks leaving for a beat in order to greet what's real. That beat is the hush you saw flash across her face. You did not author it, you held the room where it could occur. Hold more such rooms. Do it without naming the trick. There is no trick. There is only a set of kept promises so ordinary that the soul mistakes them for oxygen until it tastes them, and then it knows.